Hey, welcome to another First Chapter Friday and our unusual romance, because it's Valentine's in a couple days, is a book that is probably best for 14, maybe 13 and up. And the book is very unusual, The Teen Killer Club by Lily Sparks. It was very entertaining, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much I couldn't tell whom I wished the main character to wind up with. But it also is this great mystery, and there's a lot of gore and action, and yeah, here we go. The Girl from Hell. Prison is a lot like high school. The same institutional beige hallways, the same long hours of sitting in forced silence, and the same rigid social pyramid of cliques upon which your life depends. In both prison and high school, I've been a total loner. Boarding the prison bus this morning feels uncannily like getting on my school bus almost 2 years before. There's the same sudden silence from the girls already cuffed in, and their eyes follow me in the same sidelong glances as I shuffle down the aisle to the same place I sat on my old route, the way back. Of course, we're all in orange and beige jumpsuits, but you wear uniforms in high school too. I wore black jeans with the same thrift store leather jacket every day back then, layered my neck with thin black chokers and cheap silver chains, circled my eyes all the way around with black lines like they were the key words in a poem, and kept my hair a violent blue. It's now faded to the color of old jeans, with my roots grown out almost to my eyebrows. What's missing is the laughter. Starting freshman year, whenever I'd pass by a knot of people, there would be a sickening 3-count of mounting tension, and then the snickers would burst out behind me. Even Rose, when she was with her other friends, would laugh. Now, no one laughs. They're too scared. It turns out being feared is lonelier than being ignored. It's ironic, all the effort I've spent trying to look scary in high school, when now I'd give anything to sit across from someone whose skin didn't crawl at the sight of me. Signal Deere, the girl from hell. Assistance up front! We need an escort! The driver calls to Officer Heather, who's clipping my handcuffs to the latch on my seatbelt. She swears softly under her breath and cinches my restraints with a final tug before turning down the aisle. Correctional officers are, by the way, worse than even the worst high school teacher. Imagine the bossiest, prettiest kid in your class being put in charge for a day. That's a correctional officer. Or at least that's how they are at Bellwood, Oregon State Juvenile Penitentiary, the beige and concrete labyrinth I finally got out from under this morning. When Officer Heather lands at the bus door, her expression sours, her voice rising loud enough for me to catch. "Not in my job description!" about her latest charge. A figure hidden from my view by 4 massive male security guards. "Is that nobody?" one of the girls whispers a few rows ahead. "What? Nobody's not real? She's like the boogeyman." Yeah, look at her, with the ski mask and everything. I'm not riding on a bus with nobody. They could just stick her in with Gen Pop. That freak is dangerous." Silence falls abruptly as Officer Heather leads nobody, who is maybe 6 feet tall, down the aisle by her cuffs. Like the rest of them, I've heard the stories, and they're all looking true. She is unnervingly gaunt and lanky. Her long, pale arms are crisscrossed with ugly, shiny red burn scars. I'll put you with Blue," Heather says for the benefit of the whole bus, which is on the edge of a mutiny at the apparition of this prison folklore. You 2 Class A's can chat. The complete silent bus erupts into hissed whispers at this. "Class A? Blue hair is a Class A? They can't be in here with us." Correctional officers are never supposed to reveal our Wiley Stanton Index classification. If other inmates find out you're a Class A, it's a death sentence. Though I've been lucky enough to spend most of my incarceration in a single concrete cell in diagnostics, in my few brushes with General Pop, I've kept my head diligently down. But with these words, my cover is blown. Although where we're going, I guess it won't matter. Nobody folds her tall frame into the brown vinyl bench beside me, her broad shoulders pressed against mine so close I can see the loose threads blown by the slow, ragged breath through the hole cut in her ski mask. Officer Heather's hands shake as she fastens her in. And then, in a sly gesture as she turns to go, Officer Heather plucks off Nobody's ski mask. Nobody rockets forward, howling, shaking her bleached blonde hair over her face, which is a blur of hot pink in my peripheral vision, and the entire bus gasps as one. "What are you doing? Give it back!" I yell. "No non-regulation clothing during transfer," Officer Heather barks, fleeing up front. Nobody whimpers like a kicked dog as she strains to cover whatever is left of her face with her scarred hands. But her cuffs are too short, and she just can't reach. I look away, and I see a man who's just boarded the bus. The same man who met me in the holding cell in the bowels of Bellwood this morning. "Dave!" I scream, to be heard over the wild girl beside me. "Dave, can't she keep her hat?" Dave frowns under his unmarked baseball cap. He looks from Nobody to Officer Heather, and then leans toward her, consulting. The girls in front of us take advantage of the moment, twisting around in their seats to gawk. I lean forward and I hiss, "Turn back around right now." And here's the real difference between prison and high school. Here is the difference between being Signal Deere, loner goth, and Signal Deere, the girl from hell. The second I say, "Turn around," they do. They whip around in their seats and hunch, frozen in fear, like startled rabbits. Like I could somehow break loose from my cuffs and claw their shocked faces right off their skulls, because I'm a Class A, and who knows what I can do. The brakes shriek and sigh as the bus rumbles into gear, and I turn toward the window as much as my restraints allow to give Nobody some privacy. Still, her pain is inescapable, as her harsh chemical smell, which gets stronger as she rocks back and forth, back and forth. They must hose her down with antiseptic instead of letting her shower. Might as well get used to it, though, because if Nobody is the other Class A, then we're headed for the same place. Dave described it as a brand new program for young Class A's when I met him this morning. My impression of him was that despite lacking any official insignia, he was more in uniform than the prison guards who herded me into the room. He was calmly cycling through calls on something like an Apple Watch as they cuffed me to the table and withdrew. I could hear him say "affirmative" before he pulled his sleeve over the gadget and fixed me with an appraising stare. When I'd asked if he were there for my appeal, he threw back his head and laughed. "You tested Class A on the Wiley Stanton, and you plan on an appeal?" In case you haven't been in prison recently, the Wiley Stanton is a profiling algorithm run on everyone convicted of a felony now. Sort of like a personality quiz. Which kind of criminal are you? Except you don't have to answer any questions. No, the Wiley Stanton just takes all your valuable data, and there's a lot. They have your emails, your grades, your medical records, your internet browsing history, your purchases, your texts, your tweets, and whatever other binary trail your ISP has made through digital space, and runs it through an algorithm. It's like the algorithm Amazon uses, except instead of using your search history to predict, If you're in the market for frilly tops and laundry detergent, Wiley Stanton will predict if you're up for some murder and arson. If you're a sweet little old lady who's never so much as jaywalked, you'd be ranked in the lowest class, Class D. If you're capable of killing another person, you'll get moved up a couple rungs of the ladder to Class B. The very top of the classification system, the Class A's, they are the .001 percentile. Human shark, super manipulative, criminal genius maniacs. Charles Manson, for example, and me. I didn't kill Rose. I was framed, I told Dave. I'd said those words so many times to so many people who didn't believe me that they'd begun to feel like lies. Well, what your file says, Dave indicated the manila file in front of him, is that you were found in a woodshed with Rose Rowan's body in your lap, her murder weapon in your hand, and no evidence of a third party in the shed. And your only defense is that you have no memory of the night she died. He studied my face carefully. And worse than any of that, on conviction, you tested Class A. I plan on appealing. Let me save you some time with that one. Dave gave me a tight-lipped smile. I guess you don't get newspapers and diagnostics, but it passed the Senate last month. Appeals from Class A's will no longer be heard in court. Class A's are no longer eligible for parole. I curled forward a little as I thought. I could brace myself after impact. Class A's can't be fixed, can't be rehabilitated. Heck, you don't even feel remorse, do you? He opened my folder and rifled through the evidence photos from my trial until he found my official Wiley Stanton classification paper, tilting the large glossy crime scene prints toward me as though trying to shove them in my face. I looked away fast, but not fast enough. A flash of Rose's red mouth and strands of her dark hair floating in a halo of blood burned into my brain even after I squeezed my eyes closed. That's what the public thinks anyway. So I can promise you, you will serve every last minute of your 80-year sentence. He rapped on the desk between us, and I opened my eyes to see that he had swept away the photos and placed a contract in front of me. Or you could join this little program that we're starting. What kind of program? Click, 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 click. Nobody's cuffs rattle as she rocks. The bus creaks and sways. We're pulling into another prison yard. The facility the Gen Pop girls are going to. It seems huge from the outside. A vast concrete warehouse for bodies, but I'm sure that, like Bellwood, inside is as cramped and airless as a submarine. My gray cell was barely wide enough for me to stretch both arms out. I had no windows, just a strip of fluorescent light that they kept on 24 hours a day. I got good at sleeping with a blanket over my head. Officer Heather is on her feet, rapping out directives before we've come to a complete stop. As she's unbuckling the girls closest to us, I call, "How much longer?" But she doesn't respond. I doubt she knows anything about the program we're going to anyway, given what Dave said about it. We want to use Class A's skills in a productive way. For the last 2 months, I've been going to major juvenile institutions like Bellwood around the country and collecting all the Class A's under 18. There are other Class A's? Part of me had wondered, deep down, if Charles Manson and I were the only ones. Of course. There's another Class A at Bellwood. She's already signed on. He slid the pen toward me. This is your last chance to leave this place outside a body bag, Ms. Deere. I stared down at the lines of fine print, trying to make sense of the legalese. My pen tipped. It hovered over the signature line as I read. We'll be leaving within the hour. Dave pushed. A glance at the clock told me the hour would be up in 15 minutes. Not enough time to read before I signed. What do you want us for? That's classified. How am I supposed to agree to it if I don't know what it is? I set the pen down. What, you want us to run tests on us? Is that it? Dave stood up and went to the two-way mirror, cupped one hand against the glass and tilted his head back. Satisfied no one was looking in on us, he turned back around and he said with a shrug, "We'll be training you to kill people." Click, 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 click. Nobody's cuffs again. I glance over her scarred wrist and I see what's really been making that piercing click. A straightened paper clip, just like the one that had been on the copy of Dave's contract that I'd signed. Click, click. She digs it into the lock of her handcuffs, one hand already free, one long arm she can swing out to do anything she pleases with. Click, click. Her cuffs spring open and fall on the floor. Nobody's cold blue eyes lock with mine through the strands of her white blonde hair for just a nanosecond. Then she springs into the aisle. "Behind you!" I yell, but she's already shot past Dave and Officer Heather and pounced on the driver, her long, scarred arm swinging back wide before driving the straightened paper clip into the side of his neck. Jagged screams tear from his throat as we fly onto the oncoming lane. Great way to start. After the scene in the book, she is in this camp, that's the best way to put it, with these other Class A's, and they are being trained to kill, as was mentioned, but there's this whole romantic aspect to it. There's a very jealous girl. There's two guys that seem to be thoroughly smitten with her, with Signal. They don't really get into her appearance until later on, but apparently she's a good-looking girl. She just is such a loner that she's never recognized that in herself. And the people that are trying to befriend her or, woo her, Erik and Javier, it's almost like you can't tell if they are being competitive and trying to get the girl and that's the prize, or maybe they genuinely like her. There's something about her that's quite different than the others, and there's one of them who is totally into doing psychological manipulation in order to mess around with his victims and get them to do stuff. The other one is a flat-out, very vicious killer. And then you learn that all of these kids, because they are just teenagers, they are going to be really trapped into doing things that even is against these killers' instincts and what they feel comfortable doing. There's more romancy stuff in it, but it never is spicy. So just that caution for people, you don't have to worry about that. And then the gore part is real, and you'll discover it, and some of it is involving cult things, some of it's involving like how graphically things are described. So if you have a kind of weak stomach, maybe this isn't your book, but it is a very good romance with more to it than just romance. And I've been getting burned out reading the KZ West type books that are just simpering romancy stuff. So if you want something different, I really recommend this. I'm looking forward to the next two books. And all right. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great week and happy Valentine's.